All right, what we're going to be taking a look at building in this video is a little wishing well planter. And we do have plans available for this project in our Facebook store. This is the first one of these that I've built, but I laid it all on the computer, so I have a pretty good idea how it all goes together. And one of the things that I have figured out early on in this build is that this 30-degree angle on these boards has to be pretty precise. And I was a little bit frustrated with my miter saw because I did not have I did not have a digital gauge that you can pick up pretty cheap, and so I am definitely going to pick one up because the little gauge on the miter saw is the rear. So what we were doing was we were laying it flat and we were trying to use this. And this apparently is not very accurate because I felt like I had it dead set on 30, but it wasn't cutting it at 30, because if it was at 30, then these would all come together quite nicely. And so we were off just a little bit. So I would definitely recommend getting one of those digital gauges to set your saw blade angle to get it absolutely dialed in correctly. So we're going to be using I use two 2x4 for these two frames. And we need 6 pieces that are 14 inches long with a 30-degree bevel on both ends. And then we just need to put them together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, I've got my first two already drilled. I have my little piloter bit, countersink bit, and some 3.5-inch screws, and screw these two frames together. So that's going to be step number 1. Now, what I did, for no particular reason, is I did rip the thickness down. Instead of the 2x4, I ripped it down to 2 3/4. Again, it's not necessary. There's no specific reason I did it. I just did. So I haven't actually ripped these to that 2 3/4 width, but I'm going to. Okay. So let me go ahead and get these two frames together, and then we'll come back and talk. So again, these are 14 inches, 30-degree bevel on both ends. We need a total of 12 pieces for this. And then we have some fence pickets that we've cut down, and we basically need 2 per side here. So there's 6 boards, so we need 24 boards total. So I've cut those up to 23-inch lengths. And the reason that we use 23 inches is because we're using dog-eared fence pickets, and of course 23 times 3 works out where we get 3 sticks out of 1 fence picket. Okay, so that's why we went with 23 inches. The overall height of our wishing well is going to be about 4.5 foot tall. Okay, and this works out to be roughly 28 inches wide at its widest point also. Okay, so let me go ahead and get these 2 frames together, and then we'll take a look at our next step. So there is our first frame all put together. So we're going to go ahead and make one more just like it. But first, I've got to rip those boards down to my 2 3/4 width that I'm using on this one. All right, so we have our 2 rings made now. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and attach our side pieces. But before we do that, you can see this is kind of what we're left with. Now, in my example, I said these would be 14-inch pieces, but I messed up on my angles. Remember, I didn't have my blade angle set just properly. So my pieces are actually a little bit less than yours will be if you go with the 14 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of my boards and I am going to rip them to 4.5. But it actually works out for me because I also need to put a bevel on these. So when these 2 boards come together, you know, they'll come together at a point. It'll just look nicer if we do that. So I have the table saw. So I'm going to put a 30-degree bevel on the long end here on all 12 of these pieces that I've got already pre-cut. And again, I'm going to set my table saw up So these will wind up being 4.5. And then it's just a matter of flushing them up here. We're going to use 2 inch and 5/8 screws, possibly even 3. Same thing on this side. We'll go ahead and flush it up out here, move this ring out to here, flush with them, and then some 1 inch and 5/8 screws to hold them to the frame. And then what we'll do is we'll custom fit each piece in the middle here. We'll custom fit that per side, because I suspect there'll be some variance there. All right, so let's go ahead and get that done, and then we'll move on to the next step. Thought I'd just show you where we're at right at the moment. So we just put 2 boards on one side, 2 boards on the other, and then you could see how that 30-degree bevel just works out right there. And so our next piece, put it on, it's going to go like that, okay? And then maybe we could show you a little bit how this is going to look. I can show you how this corner is going to look. So if we put it like that, you can see that's kind of how the corner will look like, with the 230 degrees connecting with one another. So I'm going to go ahead and put on the rest of those, and then we'll work out what we need to do for the middle board there. All right, we're going to take a look at where we're at so far. And you can see now we have all 12 of our pieces on here, and now it's just a matter of getting a measurement in between each one of these spaces, and going ahead and kind of filling that in. So I'm going to cut me 6 more pieces that are 23 inches, and that will give me all these skinny boards. Actually, I only need 3, because I think I can get 2 out of 1 width. So we have 6 more boards that we have to add. So we used 12, so 18 total. I think earlier I said 24. My bad. It's 18, because I think we can get 2 out of 1 width here. So I will go ahead and cut me 3 more 23s, and then we'll go ahead and measure all those, and then rip them to the proper width so we can fit them in there. All right, so this is where we're at right now. You can see it's all filled in. Now, I did not get with the customer whether or not they need a bottom in it. Sometimes people will just set a pot in here, something like that. So I don't really know. I haven't heard back yet. I asked if they were looking for a bottom in it. But like I said, sometimes they'll just put a big pot or something in there and they don't need a bottom. So, so you can see that's what it looks like so far. Now, there is one thing I do not like, and I do not like this. I do not like the way that looks. So what I'm going to do on mine, and what the plans show, is I'm going to put a cap on this. The bottom, I'm really not sure about. I want to see what the cap looks like on top. Now, the cheap way to add the cap would be, so this thickness, you got 1.5 inches and you got 5/8. So you have 2 1/8 is what you have as far as the thickness goes. And so what we could do is rip a fence picket directly in the middle, which would give us 2 3/4. So this is 2 5/8, 2 3/4. So it give us, I don't know, 5/8 of an inch overhang to cap it. Let me just grab a picket here so we can see what we're talking about. So it kind of look like that. Okay, and I'm not against it entirely. In fact, because see, my issue is I don't have enough 2x4 treated on hand to make the cap with. but I really want to use 2x4 for the cap, and I want to do the same thing for the base. I just think it'll make it look cool. So, you know, it's not a lot more money to do it. I think I did not lay it on the computer yet, but I think it was going to be a 12-footer would do it, or two 12-footers rather. But I don't really know. I'm just kind of chalking at the moment. But anyhow, that's what we're going to do. So we're going to get some more material, and I really think that cap is going to really make it look sharp. So that's kind of what I'm thinking of. And if I'm going to make the cap, then I'll probably, no, it's got to be flush. It's got to be flush, because we got to come on the inside here. We're going to come up with some uprights to hold our roof. So I'm going to have to go to the store and get some more wood. That's what it's going to have to be. So I'm going to go do that, and then we'll come back and we'll take a look at what the cap ultimately looks like. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do on mine. So I have some scrap pieces of 2x4, and I go ahead and cut one angle at 30, and then I'm just going to come to the inside here, and once I have it properly placed, wherever the corner is, I'm just going to mark it and then cut it. So I'm going to kind of do that to all of these, all the way around. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this, position this one, and then cut it and go ahead and nail it down. All right, so there is what it looks like up top now, and you can see that, I don't know, I just think it really adds a real nice look to that top with that nice thick cap on there. You can see we just used a screw on either end there, screwed in to our 2x4 down below. And so now we want that same ring at the base, and that will give us a really sharp looking pedestal. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to scrounge up some more 2x4s pieces that I have laying about. I think I have just enough to do that bottom ring. So I'm going to go ahead and get that done, and we'll take a look at putting on the roof. Now that we have it flipped over, I think you can see how much that extra cap piece adds to the overall look. You know, when you're looking at the base, to me, having that stair step effect just looks cooler. And so we're going to go ahead and do the same thing. This will eventually become the bottom. That's the top. So we'll go ahead and add that same ring, same method. We're going to cut a corner and then just mark it all the way around and fit them bit by bit that way. I'll go ahead and get that done. We'll take a look at the next step. All right, so we've got it right side up now, and you can see we have that trim ring at the top and the trim ring at the bottom now. And so now we have to put together our roof supports. And I think it's easier to put the left and right roof support assemblies together and then attach it to the box. So I think that's what we're going to do. So the first thing in our roof supports is to cut two pieces that are 53 and 3/8 is what I cut these to. Now in the plans, that dimension is different, and the reason that dimension is different is because and I'm actually building this specifically for a customer, and they specifically said they wanted it 4.5 feet tall, and so that will make it the finished product when we have all of our roof pieces put together 54 inches tall. But I think just proportionally, I think that the roof should have a little bit more space than this roof will. So from this point here to the bottom edge of our roof, I just think it would look better if it had just an extra 6 inches of space. or so. I don't really have the exact measurement, but I just know that this one, I just would have preferred a bit more space. I could have possibly made this shorter, and that would have given us more space. So I don't know. Like I said, this is the first one I've built, so without actually seeing the finished product, you know, it's tough to visualize on the computer exactly what it's going to look like. On the computer, it looks like it would benefit from more space. So the finished product, you know, those roof supports could be whatever you want them to be. But in this case, I've already cut them to 53 3/8, so I'm committed. But there are a few more pieces to the roof support. So what we're going to need to do is we need to get a rip some 1.5 inch wide boards, be 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch on our table saw. And we don't need a lot of it, so maybe like a 4-foot section or something like that. I don't know. I'm just going to round up some scrap. I've got some scrap 2x6s that I might rip my 1.5 inch out of, because I don't think I have one more 2x4 on hand, but it's a brand new board. I've got enough scraps to rip me some 1.5 inch wide pieces. So let me get my workspace cleared off here, and then we'll talk about the pieces we need. There are some angles, lots of angles on these pieces that we got to deal with, and they're all different angles. So at any rate, let me get this cleaned up, and then I'll talk to you about that roof support assembly. All right, so I've kind of got things laid out for you here so we can talk about some dimensions and some angles and some options of how we're going to put our roof supports together. So first of all, we need 4 pieces that are 16 3/4, and then on the one end I put a 30-degree miter, and so I've chosen for my roof to have a 30-degree pitch, if you will. Of course, you can make it whatever you want to, but I just thought this would look good. And then these smaller pieces are 11 inches on the long end here, but this end has a 45-degree angle, and this one down here has a 15-degree angle. And you can see we've got a couple of options. This is the way the plans show. So that steeper angle. This is your 45-degree side. This is your 15-degree side. But you can also see you have this option as well. You just flip-flop it, and that support will be a little bit less of an angle. And I actually kind of prefer this, maybe. The one thing I will say, when we're putting in our screw, it's a little bit difficult at this angle, because what we're going to do, we're probably going to use a 3.5er, but you can see that when it's like this, it's just a little bit of an odd angle, whereas this way, you can see, you know, we're going to come in from the outside here and drop one, and then we'll come this way and drop one. So I think this is easier to get it screwed into place, but I don't know, for some reason I kind of like that better. And we could do it. We would just, you know, you just have to go at a really steep angle to get it in there. So I don't know. I don't know which way I'm ultimately going to go, but it's just some options for you. So we need 2 setups just like that. So again, 16 3/4. This is just flush cut on this end. 30-degree miter there, and then on the 11-inch pieces on the long ends here, we're going to do 45 and 15, and that will get us that, and that's kind of how it goes. So wherever this hits basically is wherever it goes, and of course this gets, you know, screwed in right there. I am going to be using 3.5-inch screws. I am going to pre-drill, come in at a sharp angle from here into there, both sides. So I'm going to get my pilot drill with the countersink in it and pre-drill everything, because you could split the wood probably pretty easy. Don't over tighten it, but ultimately this will be super sturdy, you know, when it's all put together. So let me go ahead and get those 2 assemblies done, and then we can attach it to our box here. All right, so we have our roof supports made, and we have a discovery, which I kind of suspected. Remember I talked earlier about the space between the top of our box to the roof, that I didn't think I was going to be happy with it, and I'm not. I feel like there literally needs to be about 6 more inches. So this 53 3/8 that I was telling you, that gets us at 4.5. But we're just going to go ahead and raise it up 6 inches, and I think it'll look okay at that height. So as far as attaching this to the box, we're going to come under here with 2 screws through the 2x4, and then we're going to use some 1 5/8 screws all the way down, because we're going to only be, you know, we're going to be up here instead of down here. Now when you make yours, you'll want to put 2 screws down here, 2 screws up here, maybe a couple screws, but I really think you would only need 2 at the bottom. 2 up here would be sufficient for the upright. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get those attached in place. Then we'll take a look at cutting the parts for our roof. I'll just show you what I did here. So I placed this in here, and I've got 2 screws here which are going into that 2x4 on the outside. These are 3.5 inch screws. We have a 5/8 picket, an 1.5 and 1.5. So those 3.5 inch screws should not show on the outside. If they do for some reason, I'll just go ahead and nip them with my grinder with a flap disc on it, but I don't think those should be showing on the other side. And then I just put 1 3.5 inch screw just for good measure right there. Now what I did was, on mine, I measured up 6 inches. I put in 1 screw, 3.5 inch screw, so that is sticking out on the outside. But I just did that just to hold that in place so I could get this put into place up here. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna rotate this whole thing around and basically do the same procedure. I'll take this 3.5 inch screw out, and then from the outside I'll put in an 1 5/8, and that will kind of go in the same hole that this screw is currently in. Okay, so, and I think that's about the right distance now, with that extra 6 inches from the top of this to our roof here. So let me go ahead and turn this around and get the other side on, and we'll go from there. Now you can see, as I was talking about, that 3.5 inch screw is protruding through there. Well, we'll just take that out, and we'll put in an 1 5/8, and maybe just 1 5/8 screw. I think that's really sufficient. And then here on the outside, you can see that those screws are not protruding through. So we'll go ahead and get our other roof support on, and we'll go on to the next step. Okay, so our supports are in. I do have to, you can see what I did. So I took that 3.5 inch screw and put it into the outside. So I'm going to cut that off, but I have the other one sticking out here. So I got to flip that around, cut that one off as well. And so now our supports are in, and I did add this board going horizontally, and that's going to do 2 things. It's going to support our roof boards that are going to go on here, and I'm doing something kind of special and unique up top here, so it's not going to be quote unquote the traditional roof style. So we're going to do that, and then also if we hang a plant from here, we can put in one of those big hooks right here. You got a nice big meaty thing to put in a hook, and you can hang a plant here. I don't know really what their intention is exactly. I don't know if we're going to have the traditional, you know, fake rod here. I think not. I think we'll just put a hook here and be able to hang a plant, but I don't know. We didn't really get into the details with our customer on that particular issue. So for my purpose, I'm not going to put in the crank handle. I might, you know, if the customer looks at it and says, hey, I want that crank handle, but for right now, I don't think we're going to do that, because I think that would just get in the way of putting a plant in here. So at any rate, our next step then is to take a look at what we're going to do for our roof boards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure this distance, and I'm going to have my roof. I think I'm going to have my roof hang over 2 inches, maybe 3 inches. I have to kind of look at it and see. And then the top, whatever the overhang is here, the top, there's 2 boards that go on top here, and they're going to hang over 3 inches more than whatever these boards are. Okay, so I got to do those calculations to see what we're going to do, but that's what I'm thinking. So let me figure out exactly how long the boards are going to be, and then we'll kind of go from there. All right, let me show you what we wound up doing. So I've decided this was 18.5 from support to support on the outside edge. I decided 23 because we can get 3 pieces of 23 out of 1 picket, and we need 3 for each side. So that worked out, 6 pieces. And then for the very top of the roof, we're going to go with 29. Okay, so and the reason we did that, that'll give us a 3-inch overhang longer than the roof itself, and I just did that for aesthetics. Then what I did is we're going to put a little scallop on the 2 boards that are going to go on top, and then 2 of these boards at the bottom are going to have a little scallop just for a little extra flair. And so what I've done is I've used this easy liner that I got at Walmart. It works well. It has a removable adhesive. It's pretty inexpensive. It's 18 inches wide, I think. So it's pretty wide, and I just put it in my vinyl cutter. I've got a 24-inch wide vinyl cutter, and I didn't have any signed vinyl. Normally I would use an Oracle 631, but I didn't have any on hand. And this, like I said, this is pretty economical to use for this type of project. I think it comes in 5-yard rolls, I believe. So anyhow, so I'm going to use it to make my stencil, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to place it, and then I'm just going to use a pencil to mark it, and then once I've cut one, I'll use that for the template for the other one. Okay, and then now on the shorter boards, we just need 2 of those with the scallops. Okay, so let me go ahead and show you. I'm gonna get the templates on, and we'll kind of go from there. All right, so I have my templates in place. I don't know if you can see, but I've just kind of loosely went around it with a pencil. Use Sharpie, whatever. And this stuff, like I said, is not terribly sticky, and that's why I use the pencil. I'm going to leave it on here as I use my jigsaw to cut this out, but it has a tendency to come off fairly easy. So that's the one where that Oracle 631 I use for normally for templates is pretty sticky. It's removable adhesive, but stickier than this. So normally I would like to use it, but I didn't have any. So this is a good substitute, and it's a simple enough template where it's doesn't need to hold up very much anyhow. So I'm going to cut these out, 2 small ones, 2 big ones, and then we can take a look at attaching them to our roof frame. All right, so I did cheat a little bit and attached the 2 boards together and then cut it out. I just attached them with some 1-inch staples, so we'll have to take those out. But now what I'm going to do is give them a light sand, take them apart, sand them individually also, and then we can look at put them on our roof support here. All right, so now the fun part begins. You can kind of see what I did with the sander. Just rounded over those edges, both sides, just a little bit. Nothing fancy, nothing in particular. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna find the center point of this 1 3/4 inch and make a mark on both sides. And then we're gonna take our long boards and just kind of line that up down the center there. Of course, we're gonna have equal overhang on both sides. And we're gonna attach this with some 1 5/8 screws. Okay, so we're gonna mark center, and we'll line our back edge of our board up to that mark, and then of course figure out the overhang is equal. And put our 2 boards on top first. let me get that done, and then we'll move on. So you can kind of see that's our first piece. This worked out being a 5-inch overhang. And you can kind of see where we marked it there. And we put some screws in. And you come over here, you see we marked it right there. So we got 1 screw going into the 2x4 and then 3 in this horizontal piece. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and put the other one on, and then we can put our other roof boards in place. Okay, so you can see we've got the 1/2 done. So what we did, we just took and we butted it up just as close as we can to that. And then, of course, we put the others down. Now, I do not like those screws showing. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut a little piece of trim and cover up those screws. We'll use some wood glue and some staples to hold it. The wood glue will actually do the holding. The staples are just there until the glue dries. So we'll use some exterior wood glue, add a couple little pieces of trim. I think it'll look sharp, and we'll cover up those unsightly screws. And then we're also gonna do a cap, cover up all those screws the same way. So we'll just cut a piece 29 inches long. Maybe I'll go a little longer. I don't know, sometimes I do like that step effect. So I might make my cap just a pinch longer, just for, I don't know. But we'll make it wide enough to cover those screws. Even though we're really not gonna see them, I think it'll just be a nice little added touch. So we're gonna go ahead and put on our other roof panels, and then we'll make our trim pieces, and then we'll kind of show you the finished result. So there you have it, the finished product. You can see we put those little cleats on to cover up those screw holes on both sides of the roof there. And then we also put the cap on. And I did go ahead and just make it a little bit longer. Oh, maybe it's 1.5 inch overhang, something like that. And I just thought it looked good. And just staged it up a little bit. And like I say, there's room to hang a plant, you know. We can put a hook on the underneath there and be able to hang it. If we had that rod going across like a typical wishing well, then there wouldn't be room to hang another plant. So, and something else you could do too is you could actually make like a little flower box and attach it here in the middle and have some flowers in there, and I think that would look good too. So yeah. But you can see how the little scalloped edges, I think, just adds a little to the roof line, make it look a little different. But that is the finished product. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching.